Happy lunch hour, gang. Well, it's Friday, and you know what that means. Today is the day that Washington tries to sneak a whole bunch of stuff under the radar because, hey, it's the weekend and people won't be paying attention, and so we'll do something today, and by Monday, when people start paying attention again, oh, they'll be off to the next shiny object, right? This is it. By now, you've probably heard that Congress is debating the big, beautiful bill, right? The update to the Trump tax cuts, trying to figure this one out, trying to straighten out somewhat in the way of the tax code and keep the Trump tax cuts from his first administration in place so we all don't get our taxes increased somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 a piece on average for an American. Yep, that's what's going on. And of course, what the media is talking about is the SALT, S-A-L-T, which is an acronym for state and local taxes. You have the California, Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey congressmen, a lot of them from New York primarily, screaming bloody murder that, oh my God, we've got to give deductions for people, higher deductions for people based on the state and local taxes. And right now they're debating on putting a limit for how much these people can deduct taxes of $30,000. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. If you're paying $30,000 in state and local taxes, okay, this is your state income tax, your local taxes, whatever. If you're paying 30 grand in state and local taxes, you wonder why people are leaving California, Illinois, Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey so bad, okay? I mean, the median income in the United States is only $50-something thousand, like $51,000 or $52,000. I mean, at that point, if you're making the median income in the United States, you're giving 60% of your income to those states. Okay, right. Obviously, those people aren't paying the max, all right? So, no, they wouldn't be giving 60%, but that's how crazy it is. Why do you think people are moving to, Texas or Florida or Tennessee? Gee, there's no state income tax. Isn't that surprising? Okay. And that's the one that's getting all the media attention. Because, the rest of us, the other, let's just say 45 states, we need to subsidize all those states because, those people are so oppressed. Move. Like so many of your neighbors did. But let's take a look at some of the other stuff that's being put in. And this goes off of both sides. And I want to give you how just idiotic this is because these are the people that the American public elected to be congressmen. Now, we're not going to say that the electorate is all that intelligent because there was a University of Michigan study report this year that liberal women think that inflation will be 15% within a year. Got it. Okay. Liberal women, the stupidest group in the country. It's the reason so many people say we should repeal the 19th Amendment. Not against women, just liberal women. Okay. Dumb as a box of rocks. But let's take a look at some of the other things that are up for consideration that you have some of these congressmen trying to attach as amendments, riders to this bill. Okay. How about a $1 billion tax break on gun silencers, suppressors, Most of us don't own them. It's pretty difficult to buy them. I mean, you got to get a tax stamp, and you've got to go through a separate security clearance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to get a silencer. And for the most part, Americans don't want them and don't need them. Sure, there's some people that think, okay, that's great, it's kind of cool to have, but, it's not one of those things that, oh, I want to make sure that when I'm protecting my house from Antifa breaking in or TDA breaking in, I don't want to wake up my neighbors when I shoot the bad guy. Okay. And again, silencers and suppressors are not like what you see in the movies. It doesn't just go poop. They're quieter, but it's not silent. Okay, that's it. How about another one that's being pushed through? Offshore bank accounts. We like this, right? Multinational corporations, which you could pretty much figure is basically anybody, let's say, that's publicly traded. Okay, because they all work all over the world. Okay, what do we got? We're talking about tariffs with countries all over the place. Right? Multinational corporations. We have congressmen that want an $800 million tax cut on income that's made in the Virgin Islands. That's really affecting me, because remember, I've got to pay to subsidize that tax cut. Okay. No offense, but I really don't care about what's going on in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Even though it's U.S. territory, okay, it's a territory. It's not a state. I've got to make up that revenue because it ain't like spending's coming down. Okay. Here's one for you. This one maybe somebody will agree with. Okay, but I'm just saying. You got your health service accounts. You put money away and then you can use tax-free, and then you can use it to buy prescriptions or Band-Aids or something like that. Something to do with your health. Yeah, they want to add gym memberships that you can pay for with your HSA. That's a $10 billion line item in the proposed code. Okay. All right. Banks, everybody's favorite. There's a good one for you. Banks would get a $1 billion tax cut based on income they make from writing loans for farms and ranchers. Why don't we give the tax cut to the farm or the ranch, not to the bank? There'd be an idea. I don't know. Is Jamie Dimon not making enough with his 9-figure income? I don't think the banks need any more tax cuts. All right. Of course, we have the stuff in there for no tax on tips. So you've got your riders that are being put in for waiters and waitresses or Uber drivers or barbers or the concierge at the hotel. We do have the provision being debated on overtime. Okay, taking that out. We do have the conversations being talked about no tax on Social Security. That's good. But then they get in some real weird ones. Okay, as if tax cuts for silencers isn't strange enough. Tax cuts for Purple Heart winners. Now, I'm a veteran. And I can go to lots of places. Home Depot and Lowe's, and I show my VA card and I get a 10% discount. The pizza place in town, I can go get a 10% discount. There's places, there's not a ton of them, but there's quite a few places where you can go in there and they'll give you some sort of discount for being a veteran. Okay. But now we're going to go a tax break for Purple Heart winners. How the hell's that one going to work? Okay. They want to give there's another one where they want to give a $10,000 tax break for people with car loans. Now, I'm trying to think about this, but remember, we pay our taxes every year. How much does a car have to cost for you to pay $10,000 in interest in 1 year? All right? Start doing the math on that. That means your car payment is over, just to cover $10,000 in interest in 1 year, your car payment would have to be $800 a month, interest only. Okay. And then go, so, I mean, what are we, giving tax breaks to people that are buying Ferraris? You know, that one's not making a whole lot of sense. I mean, the whole idea of this great big beautiful bill was to clean up the tax code, get rid of a bunch of wasteful spending. Doge ring a bell to anybody? And yet we have members of both parties. This is not a liberal tax and spend issue only, okay? This is coming out of both sides saying, let's put goofy tax breaks in here so we can soak other people to pay for them. Now, I've got no issues whatsoever. I think the no tax on Social Security makes sense. I think the no taxes on tips makes sense. I mean, to be honest with you guys, up until the digital age now, waiters and waitresses didn't pay taxes on their tips. When you got cash on the table, they don't report that. Never did, okay? But now, because everything is slide a credit card, there's record of it all, so it gets taxed, okay? So that is reverting to the mean. I mean, those are things I can get behind. But tax breaks for the Virgin Islands or banks, that's nuts. Okay. Tax breaks on car loans at this rate, up to $10,000. We don't need to be subsidizing people that can afford $1,000 a month car payments. We don't need to be subsidizing the Virgin Islands. We don't need to be subsidizing the banks. I mean, you think about it. You're loaning money to a ranch or a farm. Those aren't little loans, guys. The banks are making tall cash off of it. This is let's see if we can milk the little guy so we can give our big guy friends some cuts. Wrong answer. The salt stuff, I'm completely against. All right. I'm sorry. The federal government does not need to be subsidizing poor management by the states. If you've got $30,000 worth of state and local taxes, one of two things needs to happen. Either you need to leave the state or you need to figure out how the state has to lower the taxes. It's not the federal government's charge or responsibility, in other words, other taxpayers, to pay because Kathy Hochul can't run New York on a common sense budget, or Gavin Newsom, California, or J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, or Maura Healey on Massachusetts. No, because you've got absolutely ridiculous tax rates. Those need to be fixed on a local level. You don't need to be getting a break on a federal level. We'll all wind up paying for some of this stupid stuff. This goes back to, what do we need? If we can do tariffs with all these other countries where we want fair trade, how about if we start working on something called fair tax? And let's go back to something that Ron Paul talked about. And maybe it's everybody pays 10% or 7% or whatever. Not that idiot who was out there saying 22% or 23%. That'd crush the poor. But no, we need tax code fixed. We need spending fixed. Because may I remind you guys, we're $36 trillion in debt. We're adding $1 trillion to that number every 100 days. And none of this is going to fix it. They keep kicking the can down the road. One day the balloon pops. And when it does, you're on your own. Pinball out.